Hello, citizens of the internet! I am back. My name is AJ. I am the A to Z artist. It's been about 2 months, and I've been missing pretty much from all social media in general. It's been kind of a crazy couple months. I'm going to talk about that as we get into the video, but I kind of wanted to rush through this intro. This is going to be a long video, so I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. So as always, like, comment, and subscribe because it helps with the algorithm stuff here on YouTube. And also, I have a question of the week this week. I'm going to start with it because it seems to kind of get lost near the end. So my question of the week this week is, since I'm already doing my Christmas shopping, it's already a little bit better for my pocketbook than it's been previous years. I have gifts on the mind, and so I have to ask, what is the strangest gift you have ever received? Let me know down in the comments. And without further ado, let's get into it, because this one is kind of long. So as I said, it's been kind of a crazy couple months. The big kind of drawing things that have been going on have been more than anything just, I haven't really been feeling the motivation to draw. Just a lot. I think it's just everything going on in the world. My brain's a little bit overloaded and overwhelmed, so I just decided to kind of take a little bit off. I did do some doodling and stuff in my sketchbooks, but the real reason for the long break was my mom has had kidney disease for 10 years, and 2 months ago, I can't believe it's that long, but it's been about a month and a half, 2 months, she got her transplant finally. It's kind of crazy to think about, but it's been an amazing time for our family, an amazing surprise that we weren't expecting in this kind of hectic year. So with everything going on with that, I've had to kind of give it more time for the family and stuff, so I haven't really had much time to work on anything illustration-wise, so that's the reason I haven't really been on YouTube or social media for a while. With her kidney transplant being so successful and everything, and she is healing well for anybody that's curious, with the kidney transplant being so successful, I decided to celebrate with a piece, a drawing, that I had promised to her 6 months ago. Sorry, Mom. But yeah, I promised about 2 years ago. I did a piece called The Boys. You can see it right here. I'm going to flash it on screen. Depicting myself, my dad, my brother, and my dog. And it was kind of a big family piece, and I've always intended to do a sister piece to it, something that was very personal, it was meant to represent my mom and my sister for sure, and then as time went on, I kind of decided to add my nephews into it as well, calling it Blood Ties. And as I said, I kind of promised this to my mom for Mother's Day, but I decided with everything going on in the family, and with all the excitement, we decided to just kind of do this as a congratulations piece. So, and I decided to add it to YouTube as well, because I knew this probably wouldn't get as many views as some of my Pokemon fusions, but at the same time, I really wanted to, one, get back into YouTube. It's something I really enjoy, and for some reason I've just been putting it off. And two, I just wanted to share this celebration with everybody. As I said, big time for my family, and I wanted to just get my excitement out there. So for this piece, for the boys piece, I decided to put myself and my dad and brother and dog in front of Cinderella Castle in Disney World, because Disney World is kind of one of our favorite places to go. We try to go once a year, although this next year might be kind of impossible. To kind of mirror that aesthetic, I had to find another location in Disney World to put behind my family members here. So I decided on the Hollywood Tower of Terror. No real reason, although the one time my nephews and I have gone on that ride, it scared the crap out of at least one of them, probably both of them, and it makes me laugh every time I think about it, so I have happy memories of that. And Hollywood Studios is one of our favorite parks, so I kind of wanted to incorporate that in some way. With the title of the piece being Blood Ties, and with the building, the Tower of Terror being kind of a pinkish red, I kind of wanted this piece to be washed in just a red color. So that was kind of always in the back of my head as I was working forward with this piece. Kind of one of the reasons I started drawing the background in a red pencil kind of look in the digital program. Actually, fun fact about the Hollywood Tower of Terror, the reason it's red compared to everything else, because the rest of the Hollywood studios around it is very vintage Hollywood, and although these colors were present in vintage Hollywood at the time that this park was trying to represent, the building itself is actually supposed to look like a background piece to the Morocco area of Epcot, because it is one of the only buildings that you can see from that other park. So they took into account the fact that here is the Tower of Terror, and you can see it from Morocco and Epcot, so they're like, well, we have to make it look like a building that could be seen in that Morocco area. And so that's why the red kind of stonework. Another fun fact about the Tower of Terror, it is incredibly detailed, as is everything in Disney World. There are a lot of small, tiny details, so there was a lot of things to work on. And one of the things that really sped up my process this time was the perspective ruler in Clip Studio Paint. It was such a brilliant tool for this task. It was the perspective ruler lets you set up a line, which is your horizon line, at any point on the image, and then lets you set as many perspective points, vanishing points, anywhere along that line. So essentially, it's like working. It gives you a digital ruler to always draw towards. So if the ruler's on, your lines will always either be vertical, perfectly vertical, or perfectly going towards one of those vanishing points. And that is such a useful tool for architectural drawing like this. I know a lot of people talk about, oh, digital tools aren't real tools. It's not real art. But here's the thing. If I didn't know about vanishing points, if I didn't know about how perspective works in general, to start with, this entire piece wouldn't have worked. Using that perspective ruler is no different than me setting two vanishing points on a desk and using an actual ruler to draw towards those vanishing points. Go back to Todd McFarlane's statement. He made one of his videos, because if you don't know, Todd McFarlane is the creator of Spawn. He's one of the most prolific artists of Spider-Man. And for one of his videos, he talked about, yes, you have this digital program in front of you, but if I sit you down in front of this with no drawing experience, can I expect you to draw a horse with no problem? And I always go back to that, because you can't just dive into a drawing program and expect to become the best artist ever. You definitely see that in a lot of artists. I mean, I'm still learning quite a bit, and yet I'm using these digital programs because there are just things that simplifies my process quite a bit. This perspective ruler is one of them, and I really enjoy using it, especially with the inks. It really allowed me to get some more, I don't know, organic kind of looking inks. I can change the brush. I can change the brush size. I can change stuff like that, going towards that vanishing point, and made it so much easier to create a piece that was a little more interesting. So yes, digital tools are real tools, and use them as much as you want. So that's my PSA for the day, I guess. Because this video is so long, you can kind of guess that the drawing process for this video was very long as well. It took this picture probably took about, if I factor in the stuff that didn't even get included in this piece, I would probably say about 12 hours, 15 hours in general. And most of that was just experimentation. It was just tooling around. You can see with my sister's hair, she's the one in the top left of the four people. I tried to go with the kind of typical comic book Wonder Woman look, where it's like that really dark hair with the highlight erased out. And I like that look in general, but I just couldn't get it to work for this piece. And so in that way, I kind of learned to play to my strengths a little bit more. But it took me like 4 or 5 different passes on the hair to get to the point where I was like, yeah, I like this. This looks good. And that happened throughout the piece. I mean, you could see me redoing the lettering on the tower a couple times. I'm still not entirely happy with that. It's to a place I'm happy enough with to call a piece done, but I mean, there's places for that to improve. I mean, there's stuff with the shading on the trees. I decided that because they were so far away, I had way too much detail on them. There was just small stuff like that I was experimenting with the entire time I was working on this piece. And that was kind of the fun of this piece. It was kind of just me playing around and tooling around until I got to a point I was happy with. And I am really proud of this piece. I mean, there are definitely areas I think I can improve on. My inks aren't completely perfect. There are, like I said, there's a little bit too much detail in the background. It kind of takes away, I think, from the detail of the focal areas, which is the tower and my family. But at the end of the day, I really am happy with this piece. The trees and foliage around the buildings are probably some of my best work with like natural elements like that. I created a very dynamic look for a lot of my inks, which I was really proud of. Just varying up the pen size a lot more, so there's a little bit more variation. There's a lot more just visual interest in looking at like the tree bark and stuff, because there's different lines that are going through that look different than other lines. It sounds kind of simple, but that actually does create a lot of visual interest in the piece. I mean, creating that areas of difference, contrast, will definitely always help your piece stand out. I was also really happy with the differences between, like, say, the general, like the building that I'm working on with the chimneys. That feels a lot more structured and man-made than even like the brick stone wall. That's very loose brick, very loose stone, kind of chinked up and broken looking. Even the tower in the background, the different pieces of this piece all look different. They all have a different feel to them. Like some look more solid, some look more organic, some look more kind of braggy and kind of interesting. I even try to incorporate the burn mark on the front of the Tower of Terror, because if you know the story of the Tower of Terror, it was supposed to be a Twilight Zone era type episode where a lightning bolt struck the front of the building and caused the elevator to essentially go into a different dimension, I think, if I remember right. So I tried to incorporate that, and I created this really interesting burn texture, I feel like. All of these different things kind of just work together really well with the inks, and I'm super proud of that for that reason. You can see that a lot of the time I spent on the inks, I spent working on the Tower of Terror itself. I mean, that took a big bulk of my time. As I said, there are so many small little details and so many decisions I had to make with like how true I should stay to the building versus how I should simplify it, because it is in the background. There were just so many little things I had to decide with this part of the piece, and overall I'm very happy with it. I feel a little bit burnt out with the amount of work I had to do with that piece of the puzzle here, but it worked out. I'm really happy with this piece. I also wanted to say that I worked on the inks for the different elements of this piece on different drawing layers, foreground, middle ground, and background, because I knew that with the kind of red wash I was going to put over everything, I wanted to affect the line work differently for each different piece. As it faded back, I wanted to make the lines more and more red, and I just figured it would make my life a whole lot easier if I had them on different layers, so that way affecting one set of line work wouldn't affect the others. Made my life a whole lot easier, created kind of an interesting effect. It's kind of subtle, but I think it worked really well. So with that, I kind of think it's time to get into the colors. And talking about the colors, I think, like as I said, I wanted to go for a really red background and color scheme. I wanted to kind of give a kind of grayscale feel because I was working in a single color. I had to work and kind of consider value more than color itself, except for the characters in the foreground. I have that red, and so I had to kind of go deeper red for things that are darker colors, or brighter red for things that were lighter, stuff like that. That took a lot of work to figure out. Value is not my strongest point in it by any means, and so trying to figure that out on the fly was something that I've not really had to do before. I think it created a cool effect, but even there, it's not perfect. I wish there were some things that kind of fixed a little bit more, spent a little more time on. But overall, I think it turned out really interesting. With the very warm background, I decided to to add a little more coolness to the kind of clothes on on my family, and the characters. And so there's a little bit more greens, blues, and stuff. I did turn this to one of my former mentors, one of my former teachers. He kind of said the cools were a little bit too contrasty compared to the red background, and I definitely agreed, so I warmed those up a little bit near the end. But overall, it worked because I had to put a red wash over the top of them as well, because I decided to create a sunset in the background to break things up and to create a little more visual interest. And so putting that red wash over them automatically strengthened that kind of warm, automatically pushed them into the scene a little bit more. They were washed with the colors of the scene, so it made them feel like they were part of it a little more. So that I feel worked out really well. The flatting on this took a very long time just because it was very intricate. There was a lot of small details. Kind of made it a little more difficult to try and figure out what to do. I kind of played around with some different ideas. I kind of filled the whole inside of the shape first and then worked on the border. Then I worked the other way around where I would fill in the border first and filled the center. I'm not sure which one I liked better. It just kind of worked on whatever my mood was at the time, I guess. So for my rendering style this time, I really tried to kind of combine the techniques I've seen from DC artist Francis Manipool, and then also color with Kurt. Kurt K. Michael Russell, I've talked about before on this channel. I really enjoy both their coloring styles. Mostly the rendering style itself came from Color with Kurt because I use a lot of the same techniques he talks about in his channel. Same use of tools and same use of layer styles and stuff. But what I got from Francis Manipool was this kind of blue overlay I've been putting on everything to render it, because the way he talks about it and the way I'm thinking about it too is that you're taking away colors, so you're only focusing on values. The problem I had going into this piece was that there are a lot of colors kind of working against each other at first, and so without that red overlay originally, it kind of becomes problematic in a way. So if I put this blue overlay on, I'm only focusing on one color, and that's that blue. And so I then put my shadows and highlights on that, and then using the layer styles, I can make it work for the colors below with almost no issue. It was a very big help to my work. I was able to get results a lot faster for that reason. And I don't know, I think they turned out a lot better because I didn't have to focus on working around these various colors that were going on in this piece. As always, I kind of struggle with the highlights. I always do. I'm still trying to figure out a highlighting style that works for me. Different pieces have different requirements, I understand that, but at the same time, I'm just not finding something that's 100% for me. I kind of went for more of a painterly style in this one. I think that turned out really interesting and worked a lot better, but I still need to learn a little bit more about like screen mode, for example. Apparently I'm working too bright with it. Anything you put into it becomes a lot brighter. And so if you put something that's already bright into it, it soups it up way even higher. So I kind of had to work with that, but the kind of painterly look with the highlights this time worked pretty well. I kind of had to push them back down a little bit. As I said, the screen mode kind of blew them out to a really big amount, so I kind of had to work around that. Things I had going on in my head throughout this whole piece was, as I'm going further back in space, the shadows and highlights had become a lot less intense. That's just an element of atmospheric perspective in the first place, is as things go back in space, they are more affected by the atmosphere and the color of the sky and everything. So they're less saturated in color, but they also become, they also lose contrast in between the highlights and the shadows. And so you can see with the tower when I get there is that there's almost no highlights on it whatsoever. I just kept the flat base color and then the shadow layer. And then I did the same with similar with the trees. I added a highlight, but it wasn't nearly as bright as the highlight I used on the faces in the foreground. And that created a bigger sense of distance and placement. Another reason was more helpful to keep the ink separated, so I could put a color hold or a color on the inks in different places to create a more interesting effect. But yeah, with I think that's kind of all I have to say about this piece. It was a lot of fun to get done. This piece I've been trying to plan out for a while, so to get it done is a really big kind of boost to my creativity and productivity. And with all of that said, let's kind of finish up the speed paint and get into the end of the video. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. There is my Mother's Day / kidney transplant celebration piece for my mom. I'm calling it blood ties, just I don't know, family stuff like that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed me coming back to the realm of YouTube. I'm going to try my best to post every Friday from now on, as much as I can. If I can't for some reason, I'll do my best to get it out as soon as possible. But yeah, best to post every Friday about, I figure that way I have a little more time to get stuff done. I have the whole weekend, and I can even have a little bit of a day off if I have time in my schedule. I am feeling a little more productive recently, so hopefully the next couple of weeks I can be a little more on the game with this YouTube thing. I know for the next couple of weeks I'm kind of excited for the videos I'm getting planned because it's Halloween month, and that's one of my favorite holidays, and I really want to kind of push into the horror kind of creepy stuff. I know pretty much only what my next week's video is going to be, which is going to be a kind of an homage to Brightburn, which, if you've seen that movie, it's a fantastic look at like an alternate Superman story. So I decided to kind of do that kind of look for the rest of the Justice League. That's my schedule for next week. Let me know in the comments your ideas for kind of what kind of creepy superhero mashup things you want me to do. Let me know if you have any other ideas for what you want to see on this channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, as always. Helps with the algorithm and gets more of my videos out to more people. And yeah, my question of the week again, what is the strangest gift you've ever received? Let me know down in the comments. But as always, be safe, be kind, and have a little fun this week. See you next time. Bye. That's just a piece of atmospheric. That was my dog.